Hey, it's Jordan with the Young Turks and TYT Politics. Last day of the Democratic Convention. It's been quite the week. I have three wonderful ladies with me. The youngest of the delegates here this week, a Texas delegate, Clarissa Rodriguez, you're 17, which is awesome to see. I have another Texas delegate, Jen Ramos, and Kim Weaver, who is running against, what do you even call him?
Voldemort?
Voldemort.
Yeah.
We'll call him Congressman Steve King in Iowa. You've won your primary, and you'll be facing him, so we'll talk about that. There's kind of a mix of, speeches going on and what's happening there, but also a lot of delegate drama and DNC / Hillary Clinton's campaign. I've heard from multiple delegates, you basically being borderline threatened if you have signs, if you're chanting, your credentials getting pulled. I met some delegates who have had their credentials pulled. Just wanted to ask, because it seems to have been escalating throughout the week, what you experienced last night in terms of any pressures or threats on your freedom of expression.
Well, at least for me, I'm treated kind of neutrally because I'm the youngest and it's kind of a title to have. But I'm watching it and I'm looked at as if I'm not allowed to say anything about it. But I am saying it because it's absolutely ridiculous. There were some Clinton delegates sitting next to us, and there were some protesters in front. And I stand with the protesters. They have a right to protest. It's been really, really unfair, this election.
I just want to be clear, this was during speeches last night?
Yes, during Obama's speech, I believe, or Tim Kaine. That was, And the Clinton delegates were the ones sitting next to us, were urging other delegates to rip the signs from the protesters. And I said, you do not touch those signs. And I got some ugly looks for that. And I turned to Jen and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, they have a right to protest. It's been completely unfair. And for there to be delegates urging other delegates to start conflict is ridiculous. So much for unity, because that's not unifying the party. That is making the division even greater, and it's really tough to see.
I've also seen last night literally delegates sitting around where we're stationed because they are not allowed back in. Their seats were given away. Who knows what the reason? I would suspect they're trying to fill up the seats with more unifying faces, but delegates who spent a lot of money on their own dime to come here, being told, we're at full capacity, even though they have assigned seats. So that's obviously a problem. And by the way, that wasn't only Bernie Sanders delegates, that was also Hillary Clinton delegates. For you, Jen, what have you been experiencing? Because it seems to me like after Bernie spoke, not that they were treating Bernie delegates great, but once Bernie stopped speaking, it was just like, all right, we're done. They denied credentials to 800 of Bernie's volunteers. Now you have text messages and emails going forward, not to have unauthorized signs, whatever that means, and pretty much intimidation. Are you experiencing anything like that?
Well, I guess on my behalf, I think that just some of the issues that we have is being able to talk about things in a productive and constructive manner. I've had to see this in the Texas delegation, where one slip of a word, or whether it's one phrase or one way we carry ourselves in body language, will immediately cause hostility. Whether it's, a Sanders delegate who feels harassed by a Clinton delegate, or a Clinton delegate that feels harassed by a Sanders delegate. And I hate to say it, but that's not really what the movement is about. Bernie is preaching, or at least from what I'm seeing as a Sanders delegate, he's preaching progressive politics and moving forward, but at the same time he knows that it's not supposed to be about hostility, and it's not supposed to be about getting ugly in people's faces. It's about doing the best that we can with the movement that we have and the voice that we have. And having seen it within, not necessarily just my state, but other states as well, I think that coming down to it, we owe each other at least a little bit of space and self-respect, and that it hasn't necessarily been answered all this week, but coming in and moving forward, this is my first national convention ever. And I would like to see, I would like to see at least today, maybe the possibility of us at least putting things to rest, putting things to bed. Things happen the way they happen, but we're all here for a purpose, and we're all here because we're progressives, and that's really the moral at the end of the day.
And Kim, I want to talk about your race, but first, you're not a millennial, which maybe like a year.
My children are.
Maybe a year out of that range. But so you're seeing this, you're trying to get into Congress. It seems to me that there's a lot of platitudes being thrown out about unity and breaking barriers and stronger together and all this stuff. Yet they really haven't rolled out the carpet for the 46% of the 46% that was won by Bernie Sanders. Obviously, it's Hillary Clinton's convention, so her people might get a little preferential treatment. But day by day, I mean, I'm not going to get into detail, but I have people coming up to me crying and this and that.
Yeah.
And I didn't spend $1,000 of my own money to be here, so I can only imagine. Just as someone who's trying to become an elected officer, what have you seen this week in terms of all that?
It makes me sad because I see so many people who are so excited and motivated to push forward our progressive ideas and actually change the world and make it a better place. And, you know, to be pushed away. And it's kind of nice that the progressives in Iowa have kind of adopted me as their candidate because I'm kind of like, you know, the fourth child that doesn't get a lot of attention. So, you know, like the DCCC and all those people, they're not supporting me. And they come and they talk to me, and the Bernie people on our delegation, they've kind of made it their mission to help me get interviews and things like that. And there's been some animosity between some of them, between the Bernie and the Hillary. But their bottom line is they come to me and say, we want to volunteer for you, but are you going to make us knock on doors for Hillary? And I say, no, we're not. You know, that's your choice. And there's plenty of people that knock on doors for Hillary and me, and there's people who just knock on doors for me. And I'm okay with that. And so then they're happy because I'm not going to turn somebody away if they want to work towards. I have a big student loan debt reform project that I want to do, and it's like you have some really great ideas and we want to get them passed. So I feel sad that they're being treated that way, but I want them to know that they're welcome in my camp, and I appreciate their enthusiasm and their support. And you know, we can't lose the young people because they're our base. And I was just encouraging her to consider running for office later because, you know, we need to build our base. And we need to build our base with people who have good progressive ideas and want to actually do something.
I want to stay with you for a minute because I think your campaign kind of mirrors what we're seeing on stage. I was outside covering protests, so I didn't see every speech, but I read about it and I know what was said. It seemed to me that it was less of a Hillary Clinton pep rally and more of a Donald Trump as Mussolini rally last night. Which frankly, you could run that kind of campaign. Steve King is an Islamophobe. He's a racist. I mean, this is not my opinion. This is just the statements he makes. It's very clear.
It's hard to ignore it.
Right. So obviously you could run just blasting this guy.
I could.
But to a certain extent, you have to convince people to vote for you.
Right.
I believe with Tim Kaine last night, and I should give credit, by the way, to Tim Kaine and President Obama. They did give shout outs to Bernie Sanders supporters pretty early on in their speech, which you haven't really heard that from a lot of speakers. So at least whether it's genuine or political, whatever, they understood that there is a huge faction in here that thinks differently than you. But I wanted to ask you, are you hearing anything that's kind of appealing to progressives that this is why you should vote for Hillary Clinton? Because a lot of what I'm hearing is why we just can't afford Donald Trump in the White House.
Well, this is what I say. You know, in order to get our progressive ideas passed, we need to have a friendly House and a friendly Senate. And if we can get Democrats elected, and if we can take over Congress, and we put forth progressive measures, she's not going to veto them. She's going to support them. This entire campaign, Bernie has pushed the conversation to the left. It's been a much more progressive conversation than we've ever had in the past. And, you know, the $15 minimum wage, college affordability, student loan debt reform, immigration reform, all those things, I don't know if they would have gotten as much attention. So, Trump terrifies me. He really does.
And by the way, we should say, in the Real Clear Politics average, she's ahead right now.
She is.
No, he is.
He is? Oh my God, I didn't know that. Sorry, guys.
He's up a point.
Well, we had a Senate race in 14 where they said our guy was ahead by 6 and he lost by 6. So sometimes polls. But what that says is we just have to work really hard. And, you know, I hope that they can figure out a way to bring people in and say, hey, look, this is what we're going to do because your ideas are wonderful and they will improve our world. And the difference between what I see between the Republicans and the Democrats, and I see this in my own race, is that I'm focused on solutions and they're focused on division and they're focused on, creating animosity. And in my race, it's more about he's the most offensive and least effective member of Congress. Okay, that's fine, but I have great ideas as well. So electing me isn't going to just mean you have a different face that doesn't do anything. You're going to have somebody that actually does something. A recent Des Moines Register article, they said, it was kind of an awkward title, something like Kim Weaver, not Steve King. So basically, I'm not running a race, hey, vote for me because I'm not Steve King, although, he embarrasses us and he really isn't our voice. Immigration reform, as a matter of fact, overwhelmingly, the majority of people in the district support comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship. The American Farm Bureau supports it because they know it's good for agriculture, yet he doesn't. And I don't know if they just don't pay attention or what. So when I look at the composition of the district, people always go focus on what's the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats, how the percentages, and I say, well, I'll tell you this. 60% of the registered voters are Democrat and no party. And so, we do that, we can win.
I want to ask you, Jen, and I was outside. When I got there was not Bernie supporters, but kind of these, anarchist rebels who were like barricading through a fence and trying to cause trouble. The Bernie supporters were, holding up peace signs and all that. So once the situation calmed down, I got to talk to a lot of Bernie supporters. And when there's a lot of emotion, but one thing I really detect is there's really an alternate reality, what's being said in here and what's out on the streets.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
I think, you have a lot of platitudes. Cory Booker, who takes money from Wall Street left and right, quoting Maya Angelou. Tim Kaine, God bless him, talking about his story. The guy takes quite a bit of money from Wall Street, loves war. As of 5 minutes ago, like the TPP. I could go on. Most of the people I spoke to outside are drowned in student loan debt. If they have health care, it's bad. Are working 2 jobs, we get the point. So it seems like there's kind of this optic of progressivism in here, and we're fighting for the middle class. And most of the people outside think they don't care. So I wanted to ask you, there's a disconnect, and it doesn't seem to be being addressed here. Do you feel that?
Well, I can honestly speak on my behalf. I am a minority in every sense of the word. I'm a Latina. I'm under the age of 35, and I can't go back to college. I have student loan debt. I have $16,000 in student loan debt that I am trying to pay off to be able to go back and finish my degree.
What's your degree in?
Communications, and I'm 27 credits away from my bachelor's degree. And I actually, when I had to drop out of college, I became a waitress, and I was a full-time waitress for 3 years, working 6-7 days a week, working 80-hour weeks, trying to make ends meet. I also suffer from depression and anxiety, and these are real issues to me, and I can relate to the people out there, and I can understand why there's a disconnect. But the only way we can change the disconnect to connect is if we go and advocate, and that's the reason I became a Bernie Sanders supporter, was because his focus was not on just having a chief to lead the Indians. It was on making sure that the Indians were a part of the democratic process and making sure that we were there to reflect our values. And so while there is a disconnect, I will agree, between the elected officials and the general population, the only way we can change it and the only way we can fix it is if we become the movement. And if we decide, and like Bernie says, become precinct chairs, become city council members, become mayors, that is the only way we can fix it. And while I understand people are protesting, it comes down to using that action for power and motivating and moving us forward. And that's realistically the best way we can do it. And that's the way I see it. So while, yes, I'm a young Democrat right now and I'm here as a national delegate, I do intend to help progressives move forward. I'm a campaign manager right now, and I am happy to work with progressives who have the same ideals and the same values and understand that it's not about the 1%. And Bernie has stated that very clearly. It's not about the 1%. It's about the 99% that are dealing with these struggles and dealing with these issues. And I look forward to hopefully continuing with these types of movements, and that's really the best way we can do it. But I agree, there is definitely a disconnect, and the best way we can bridge that gap is becoming that connect ourselves.
And Kim, at 17, I didn't give a damn about politics or any of this stuff. Your personal story, how did you become the youngest delegate? And as a young person who I hope still has a lot of idealism and this and that, has anything this week deterred you?
Absolutely not. It's a little disappointing. So I read a lot. I watch Young Turks.
Well, first, I just wanted to know how you became a delegate, because again, at 17, like I was doing things I'm not going to talk about.
well, I listened to this band, and this guy he wore a Bernie Sanders T-shirt, and I was like, who the hell is Bernie Sanders? And I remember reading about him. I started watching his speeches, and I got involved. I volunteered for his campaign before our primary in March. And the local coordinator, he called me. He said, "Do you want to be a delegate?" I told him, I was like, "I don't even know what that means. What's a delegate?" And we looked up all the rules. I would stay up so late, 3 a.m, checking over and over the rules to make sure that I could be a part of this. So it turns out Texas has a law, which is actually pretty cool, that if you turn 18 before the general election, you can register to vote when you're 17 and 10 months. So
So they make voting a little easier. Abortions, absolutely not.
yeah, fuck my rights, but at least I can vote. Sorry. Yeah, and we checked the rules, and 17-year-olds can be delegates. And I was really nervous because you have to run a campaign. You have to reach out to your delegates and ask for their trust, so you can represent them. And it was really weird because, I'm a 17-year-old kid, still in high school, incoming senior. And I was asking, these grown adults who have been in politics all their lives to trust me to represent them. And sure enough, they did. I gave a couple speeches. I wrote emails, I made calls asking for the trust and asking and, kind of trying to articulate what the movement means to me and what Sanders means to me and how I wanted to play a part in it. And sure enough, I was elected at our state convention, and I actually haven't paid a dime for being here. My entire trip has been paid for out of the kindness of all of my community's heart. My room was paid for by the party, some donors who care about getting youth involved. And my flight was paid for by this lady I met at a Bernie Sanders meeting. She came up to me and said, "If you get elected, call me and I will pay for your flight to and from because I believe in you." And I was elected, and she paid for my flight, and I had a GoFundMe, and we raised, I believe, like $2,500 just for spending money just to be here. And so I'm humbled and I'm honored, and I don't know. It's incredible. And I've been running around everywhere constantly, having microphones and cameras in my face, asking me why I give a shit. And truth is because this is a part of me. And I was in 4th grade when Obama was elected. I remember shushing everybody in my class during his inauguration, like, "Shut up, I need to watch this." It's just so important to me, and Bernie Sanders specifically. I remember when I first started watching the race, I was like, "Oh, Hillary Clinton." And then this weird old Jewish man from Vermont came out and said, "You have rights. You should get $15. You should be able to live. You should have free health care." And that spoke to me because it wasn't some plastic politics. It was real, and it involved me, and I loved every second of everything he had to say. So I took it upon myself to get involved in any way I could.
And with a minute or 2 minutes, I wanted to give you another shameless plug.
Thank you.
I think it's you look at Tim Canova in Florida, Zephyr Teachout in New York, a lot of progressive candidates with a good shot this year. And I think it would be a huge accomplishment to take down the Steve Kings of the world. So if people are in the Iowa area, or even if they're not, what's your main message of what you want to accomplish in the Congress?
Well, my main message is that I really want to work on student loan debt reform because I believe that is our next financial crisis. My oldest son went to MIT, has a bunch of loans. My daughter's in medical school. My youngest son's majoring in geology. I'm a single mom. I chose a profession where I make a difference, but I don't make a lot of money. And a child and somebody who has the ambition and the drive and the determination, we should make sure as a country that we are able to cultivate that. And to say that you have to be burdened with debt the rest of your life, we're hurting ourselves. I mean, we cannot advance as a good society if our young people can't get an education. And so if you want to support me, I have a lot of people sending me Tubmans because my opponent tried to block Harriet Tubman from the $20 bill. So donations are always wonderful. I'm on a budget, so I mean, I understand if you can't give a lot, but people giving a little, a lot of people doing that, it makes a big difference. I also need people. My campaign manager is a former Bernie field guy, and he's fabulous. Shout out to David. And so he'll find something for you to do. Email him, david@weaverforcongress.com. Sorry, David, your inbox is going to fill up, but it's okay. So we need help. I was just saying yesterday, this should be a national project to help me get elected because I know I'll make a difference. That's what I've done for a living for the last 17 years. What I do isn't just what I do, it's who I am. And I'm just so excited to have you guys here. And I just love the enthusiasm, and we can't let that go away. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. It's been awesome. Stay tuned. Young Turks stream, obviously the main show tonight. I'll be uploading things on youtube.com/TYT Politics, and we'll see what Hillary Clinton has to say tonight, folks. Thanks for watching.